Studio Classroom is on the air. It's a place to learn and a place to share. Connect with others everywhere. There are things to learn and there's things to know. So please stay tuned and watch the show.
Hello and welcome to Studio Classroom on the air. My name is Gabe. Have you ever faced a dangerous situation in the great outdoors? Perhaps you've been stuck outside in terrible weather. Well, I have a story for you. The title of today's lesson is Flash Flood. And yes, this is my story. It's a true story of a hike I went on last year. Here are a couple of questions for you as we get started with our lesson. All right, see if you can find the answers to these questions. What were my friends and I wearing? Yes, of course we were wearing clothes, but what specifically do I mention in the lesson? What were my friends and I wearing? And what was the weather like? What was the weather like? Okay, let's get started. There is a lot to learn about English and life from this lesson. Here we go.
Flash flood. Never underestimate the power of even a little rain. When was the last time you saw 3 grown men running down a forest trail in the rain wearing flip-flops? That's what my friends Brandon, Josh, and I were doing last autumn in Taidong County. We were adventurers looking for a waterfall. Why were we running? We didn't have much time to get to the waterfall and back. Why were we wearing flip-flops? Well, it was raining, and we didn't want to get our shoes muddy. That, and we didn't know what was ahead.
Hi everyone, welcome to Language Lab. 这篇文章的第一个重点，我们看 flash flood 这个名词。Flash 在这里是指突如其来的或者是突发的一阵，所以 flash flood 就是指山洪爆发或者是骤发的洪水。例如 The sudden rainstorm caused several flash floods in the mountains. 突如其来的暴风雨造成了山区几处的山洪爆发，或者是 The flash flood destroyed many houses near the riverbank. 这场骤发的洪水摧毁了岸边的许多房屋。继续我们看的是 underestimate 这个动词 ，under 是指在某个程度之下的 ，estimate 是指估算，所以 underestimate 是指低估、小看或者是轻视。例如 ，We underestimated our opponents and lost the game。我们低估了对手的实力，输了这场比赛。或者是 Never underestimate how media can affect people。千万不要小看媒体影响人的能力。它的反义词就是把字首的 under 换成 over， 变成 overestimate， 意思是指高估。例如 We overestimated the capability of the CEO， 我们高估了这位执行长的能力。Hey Gabe, this looks really familiar. Weren't we in Taidong County last year?
We certainly were, Rebecca. We were in Taidong filming for Studio Classroom. Do you remember that fish market?
Yes, the fish market, where we had to carry those heavy fish and they're really slimy and they cut off the heads.
Right, exactly. Yes, and that fish was delicious. And that was all in Chenggong Harbor. Well, it was in that harbor that I looked up into the mountains and saw this waterfall that I mentioned in today's lesson. So I went back to go hiking to find that waterfall.
Ah, so that's how it all started. You remembered when we were there last year and you wanted to go back. Well, you know something, Gabe? I'm actually really interested in the title of your lesson because, I mean, you wrote this, Flash Flood.
Well, exactly. So my friends and I experienced a flash flood, and we'll get to that later. in our lesson. So I guess we should just start at the beginning where I wrote, never underestimate the power of even a little rain. All right, a lot of times you go outside and you think, it's just sprinkling out here. It's not much rain. Nothing much could happen. I thought the same thing when I went on this hike.
Well, you know something, Gabe? I'm going to answer this question. When was the last time you saw 3 grown men running down a forest trail in the rain wearing flip-flops? Let me think. Never. Never, really.
Yes, you're right.
I cannot remember the last time I saw 3 grown men wearing flip-flops.
Yeah, especially running down a trail, right?
Exactly.
Because most times when people go hiking, they wear proper hiking shoes, right? Not flip-flops in the rain. Friends, let's take a look at this flip-flop, okay? There's a difference between flip-flops and slippers. Now, slippers you might wear in your house. When your guests come over, they take off their shoes, and you might give them a pair of slippers. But you don't usually wear slippers like this out anywhere, but you might go to the beach with flip-flops. And, of course, you can see they look a little bit different. There's a space. Part of the flip-flop goes between your 2 toes, right? But that's not the same for slippers.
And it's funny because actually sometimes I think that here in Taiwan, people actually call flip-flops slippers. They'll say, oh, are you wearing slippers? And they're actually asking, are you wearing flip-flops?
Right. So, friends, this is a good word to know because a lot of people, especially in the summer, like to wear flip-flops outside. Okay, so these are flip-flops. These are slippers, household slippers. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so anyway, we're talking about this experience that you had, and like I already said, the last time, well, actually, I can't remember the last time I saw 3 grown men running down a forest trail in the rain wearing flip-flops. Well, you're right, Gabe, that's what my friends Brandon, Josh, and I were doing last autumn in Taidong County.
Exactly.
Of course, you're adventurous, looking for a waterfall.
And let me tell you about that waterfall. Remember, Rebecca, seeing this waterfall when we were in Chengong Harbor? It was in the distance, and from a distance, it just looked like a small string hanging down the side of the mountain. As you can see, it's not a big waterfall. It's not like Niagara Falls, right? However, I was curious, and I knew I had to go and try to find the base of that waterfall.
Yes, you guys were definitely very adventurous and very curious, if I might just add. So you asked the question, why were we running? Well, and you answer your own question. We didn't have much time to get to the waterfall and back. So it sounds like, Gabe, you guys were pressed for time.
Well, exactly. That's a good way to put it. That's not in the lesson, but that's exactly what was happening. We were pressed for time. So friends, if you don't have much time, if someone is waiting for you, or maybe you need to be somewhere very quickly, you could say you are pressed for time.
Like, for example, let's say you're at the store and then you see somebody that you know at the store. You'd like to talk to them, but you might say, I'm sorry, I'd love to stay and talk, but I'm pressed for time. I need to be somewhere in 15 minutes.
Okay, so friends, when are you pressed for time? Well, often we are pressed for time here at Studio Classroom. We can't talk about everything we'd like to talk about because we are pressed for time. So let's move on.
Yes, we are pressed for time. And you ask another question, Gabe. Why were we wearing flip-flops? You answer this question. Well, it was raining, so obviously you would be wearing flip-flops.
Well, it was raining, so we didn't want to get our shoes muddy. Yeah, it's not usually a smart idea to wear flip-flops in the rain, but we didn't want to get our other shoes muddy, and so we just chose to wear our flip-flops. That, and we didn't know what was ahead. Okay, and friends, if you're not sure what is ahead in our lesson, that's okay. We're going to find out. But for now, we're going to join Steve and Ken in the info cloud as they talk about some of these questions that I had. Let's go to the info cloud.
Need to add some flavor to your writing or speech assignments? Consider adding some hypophora. Hypophora is a stylistic device in which an author or speaker asks a question and then immediately answers it.
Hypophora is simple, yet very effective because it creates a feeling that the author or speaker is having a dialogue with the audience.
Hypophora grabs an audience's attention because anytime you ask a question, you raise the audience's curiosity, right?
Right. With Hypophora, speakers anticipate questions an audience might ask and then use the answers to those questions as the main points of their speech.
Many of history's great speakers were great in part because they were masters of Hypophora. Winston Churchill, for example, used it to great effect as he rallied the English during World War II.
Hypophora gives audiences the feeling that the speaker is confident and in control, which is just what the British people needed from their wartime prime minister.
Martin Luther King Jr. included Hypophora in his famous and very powerful I Have a Dream speech.
Friends, whether you're writing or speaking, Hypophora is a great tool to have in your language toolkit.
很多的演讲者会先提出一个问题来引起听众的兴趣，提出了问题之后，再立刻提供答案。这种修辞手法有一个专有名词，叫做 Hypophora 设问法。设问法就是借由询问的语气来引起读者或听众的注意。历史上许多著名的演说里头都有用到 Hypophora， 例如 Winston Churchill 丘吉尔在第二次世界大战时的演说，还有 Martin Luther King Jr. 金恩博士举世闻名的演讲我有一个梦想。Hypophora 这个字其实并不是那么的重要，我们也不必刻意的去记它，但是这种修辞手法我们写作或演讲的时候不妨试试看。这就是今天的 Info Cloud， 下次再见。